morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back. It's Monday, so Isabelle's talk show as usual. And today I'm so glad to invite a new guest called Tiffany Green. Welcome, Tiffany. So she's going to talk about anxiety during an interview, but before she starts, I'm going to introduce Tiffany. So she lives in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, in the north east part of the US. And then, sorry about that, there is an echo, so I'm just going to get rid of the echo, and that's it. Let's do it again. So sorry, and Tiffany Green, she lives in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, in the northeast part of the US. She's a mom of two amazing boys. She's a lover of nature, photography, and the arts. She finds the world an infinitely beautiful place. It leaves her on constantly. She founded her business in March of this year, following 25 years in corporate human resources, the last 14 years as an HR executive. Authentic human connection is what motivates her professionally and personally. She has a lot of helping energy and feels most at peace when she's able to be of service to others, particularly during times of uncertainty. She believes most of the human condition is universal, and there is so much more that unites us than divides us. She loves learning about why people choose their work, which is why she became a career and leadership coach. It tells her so much about a person's passions, skills, values, and the problems they are trying to solve. So today she's going to tell you how to overcome interview anxiety. Welcome, Tiffany.
Isabelle, thank you so much for having me. That was such a lovely introduction in your beautiful accent.
Thank you.
I think I might put you on retainer for that. I'd like you to introduce me wherever I go.
No problem. You let me know.
So I'm so happy to be here today, and I'm talking about a subject that means a lot to me, which is the fact that we all have anxiety in different situations, and a very common time to have anxiety is when we go for an interview, right? And I first want to normalize that it's a experience that at some point everybody has to feel, fear or stress, and it comes from a place of conscientiousness. It comes from a place of wanting to do well, right? And wanting to put our best foot forward. And it also comes from a place of attaching a lot of importance on getting the job, right? So we all want to feel prepared for the interview. We want to impress. And so that's a lot of where that anxiety comes from, is the idea that we have to perform. But when we do that, we miss a giant opportunity to do something else, which is to learn.
Mm-hmm.
To learn about the company, the opportunity, but even more importantly, to learn about ourselves. And so one of the things that I want to talk about today is being able to really restore or bring confidence to this process, so that we can make it less about how we perform and more about what we learn from the experience.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about that, because it's true. Sometimes we focus so much on the outcome of the job interview. I really want the job, and we forget about what it entitles as well. I mean, the connection with the people, I mean, the values. So very important to just learn as well, and not only try to impress.
Isabelle, I love your words. You had said, we attach ourselves to the outcome, and that is exactly right. That's part of where this anxiety comes from, is that we don't recognize that the process of going through an interview in and of itself is an experience that can hold so much power and so much opportunity. And if we are able to be aware of how we show up, sort of present and in a mindset of opportunity and a mindset of I'm here to learn more, it can really be a very powerful transition that we make in our own mind, and it helps us access some of that confidence. And so before I move into tips, one of the things that I'll share is I did spend a very long time in human resources, 25 years. And so I did a lot of recruiting. And so I'm going to be coming at this both from the perspective of the hiring manager, the person that's holding that has the open position. But I'm also going to come at it from a very personal place, which is a place of being a feeling introvert, right? So I tend to feel things really, really deeply. And I am not a stranger to anxiety. I've lived with anxiety. I manage my anxiety, on a pretty active basis. And it's because of those things that I'm able to sort of see the interview process from both perspectives. And so I'm going to bring it to you from both perspectives. So I want to start with a little research on the company goes a long way, right? It's important to know. It's important to know about what markets they're in. It's important to know who their customers are. It's important to know what problems they're trying to solve. It's important to know a little bit about their history, right? And to the extent that that's available, it's great to be able to inform yourself on what is the mission of the company, right? And so I always encourage people, this is not something where you need to, you don't need to memorize their annual report, right? And you also don't need to, contact everybody who is on LinkedIn that's at the company, right? This is just a matter of informing yourself so that you can engage with the company in a way that shows you're interested, that you're engaged, that you're informed, that you've taken the time to learn more about what it is that they do and how you can bring value to the company. So I'd say know the basics. Pay attention to the information that's provided about the role. So to the extent that there's a job description, you do want to look at that. You do want to know the facets of the role to make sure that you're in alignment from a skills perspective. And if you know who to speak to or with, it does pay attention. If you know who you will be speaking with, it does actually help to learn a little bit about their background. So for example, if I know that I'm showing up for an interview with Isabelle from Phoenix Coaching and Training, it's going to help me to know a little bit about who Isabelle is, what jobs she's held, and just something that helps me connect to her.
Yeah, definitely. And even sometimes to check what people like, like a sport. So you can just relate and just throw something just like, hey, I have heard that this team, football team or whatever, has won this week. Just create the interest, the connection.
That's beautiful. And it can be that simple. It can also be a shared connection. So you and I met through Daphna, right?
Exactly.
And we were at one of her mastermind seminars. So that would have been a great opportunity if I was interviewing with you to just bring up the fact that we have a common connection. We have a mutual friend. So those are things that can be helpful as far as preparation going into the interview. It is also very okay to ask what the interview day is going to comprise of. Will there be, how many interviews will there be? Will there be any testing? Sometimes companies will do either basic skills testing or maybe a personality interview, personality inventory. Am I going to lunch with the interview team, right? That also is something that's good to know as far as just preparing myself for some of the social aspects of the day. So it is perfectly okay to ask about what the interview will entail. The second tip that I have, and this one is one that for a while was really hard for me, and it involves centering ourselves, right? It's something that we often do in the coaching space. And the reason it was difficult for me at first is that I am not someone who meditates. I have a difficult time with the stillness of meditation. I am working on it. It's a goal. But the idea of, having sort of complete silence for a period of time is a skill to be honed. But if we think about centering, Centering happens in a shorter period. Typically, it could be anything, around 2 to 5 minutes. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a process of being aware, right? It's being aware of our breath. It's being aware of what's happening for us consciously, or even unconsciously, right? If we really are able to sort of hone, like, what's showing up in our body, where are we holding our anxiety? So it's a process of just sort of checking in with yourself and understanding, um, how do I calm myself in this moment? Like, where am I able to really bring my attention? Because it's like there's something that's happening that's distracting, and then consciously work on quieting whatever that voice is, or whatever that, like, is it showing up as a pain in your neck or your shoulders? And the process of centering can really help us just be aware, so that we can go into the process with a calmer headspace. So it doesn't mean an hour of yoga, right? Like, I love that song. If you like pina coladas, getting lost in the rain, if you can't stand yoga, if you have half a brain. So I'm not one of those people that, like, actively taps into meditation or yoga, but I do find the practice of centering myself very accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I will just offer that that's one way to sort of mentally prepare and bring ourselves back to ourselves before we go into the interview process.
Yeah, and breathing, if going to the toilets for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and just breathe and just calm the mind. So one that helps as well, yeah, to be centered and to be clear as well about what we want and what message we're going to convey about ourselves.
Exactly. And it doesn't even need to be this necessarily a deep breathing. It can just be like shutting our eyes and being aware of our breath, and
Mm-hmm.
then being aware of our thoughts, for a period of 3 to 5 minutes. So my third tip has to do with working through responses ahead of time. And so a lot of people, who come to me for interview prep will say, well, how can I do that? I can't possibly know, what questions they're going to ask me. Of course, we don't know exactly what questions will transpire during the interview, but if we know the role that we're going for, we should have a pretty good idea.
Oh, yes.
And what I mean by that is, let's say I'm interviewing for a role in client services. What questions do you think might be asked if I'm going for a job in client services?
Well, first, how do you talk to clients, and what is how do you build connection with the clients? How do you listen to your client? Because I think that's the first thing, really.
That's perfect. So on my list were interpersonal skills, communication skills. So you had both of those. Problem solving, right? Because we're trying to solve problems for our customers. Maybe initiative, maybe detail orientation, because that's important in client services in terms of being able to gather all of the facts and really make sure that we know what it is that the customer is looking to have resolved, or just to be heard. And so we can actually anticipate in most cases what questions will be asked. And so if let's say, the top 5 to 8 skills that are associated with that position, what I recommend is taking each of those skills and thinking about a situation in which you use those skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as you do that, you want to start with what was the situation and be able to explain that during the interview or the task. It could be the task. What was the action that I took to actually affect the outcome of the situation? And ultimately, what was the outcome, right? So it's 3 parts. For every skill that you're trying to demonstrate, have an example or 2 of the situation, the action, and the outcome. And I actually recommend scripting that, right? Like, so if the skill is communication, take a situation and actually script your situation, your action, and your outcome for that situation. This is known as the STAR method. I used SAO, situation, action, outcome. It's also known as situation, task, action, result, right? So result and outcome are sort of interchangeable words. And that is going to help you feel more in control of what will happen, because you know that if they ask you a question about use of interpersonal skills, or when you had a situation in which you exercised influence, you're going to be ready because you have those
You are,
situations.
exactly, you've got them in mind. And there is a thing as well, I mean, with your example as helping clients and or customers, is trying to put yourself in their shoes. What would you like the person on the phone, what would you like them to tell you if you were a client? How would you like as a client to be treated?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's a process of also, actively listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really intuiting what it is that the customer is needing beyond, the words. Sometimes, and we do this a lot as coaches, we're not necessarily coaching the situation. We're not coaching the story. We're coaching the energy of the story, right? We're coaching
What's behind.
that's right. And either the anger or the frustration, and really trying to make sure that we're validating what someone is feeling as they're going through that process.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is that when we come into the interview prepared, we actually can allow ourselves to engage in a more active way. And what we can find often is that interviewing can be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if we really allow ourselves to relax into the process and come into it feeling like, you know what, I know I have something to offer. This may or may not be the right opportunity, but I'm going to learn something about it, and I'm going to meet somebody new, right? Like I think about what we're doing right here. This is a very authentic, opportunity for me to connect with someone new in a space that I haven't done that before. Well, that's exciting to me. I would much rather do this than make small talk with you. And so I often think about like an interview is a very similar opportunity. Like, let's make it authentic. Let's make it real by bringing our passion to it, which actually leads me to my next tip, which has to do with bringing passion to the interview.
Oh, yes.
So sometimes we show up flustered, right? We and maybe it's because there was traffic on the way over, or we got lost when we were arriving, or the Zoom link didn't work at first, or our audio was echoey, right? So there's all of these things that happen right before an interview or right before, the engagement that can take us out of the moment. And so candidates arrive and they are preoccupied. They're looking at their phone. They're texting, I got here, but it wasn't easy. They're in the moment of sort of whatever has just happened. And what happens is that when they show up distracted or they show up preoccupied, they're not necessarily able to bring the passion with them. And so the thing that I want to say about that is it is so important that when you are in this process of interviewing for a position, that you demonstrate that you want the position, right? That it's exciting, the opportunity is exciting to you.
Yes.
And I don't know why, but it does seem to me like a lot of candidates block that passion. And maybe it's nerves. Again, going back to the subject of this interview, nerves can sort of really dampen our spirit, but it is such a great opportunity to, show up. And when you're fully present, be able to say like, I am so excited to be here. And I'm so excited to learn more about this job. I think I'm a great fit. And I've had some experiences that are going to align really nicely to some of the problems that you're trying to solve here. So bring the passion.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I know. Because I think that's what sells it, because you were in that situation when you had to recruit and you saw so many candidates, you interviewed so many candidates, and the one who will definitely stand out will be the one showing passion. Yeah, I'm ready to do it.
Absolutely. So I have a couple other thoughts that I'll share in terms of just, readying your mind for this process. And one is to schedule strategically.
Okay.
So Isabelle, when do you feel like you can access the most mental acuity? Like, when are you sharpest during your day?
In the morning, definitely.
Okay. So, that's an important thing to know about yourself. And it might mean that if you have an opportunity to suggest, your availability, you may want to strategically schedule that for a morning hour, right? Because the other thing that's nice about a morning hour, besides knowing that that tends to be when you're at your peak, is that it lessens the amount of time that we have to ruminate, right? Like, 'cause a lot of us, it's dangerous to be in our own heads for too long. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So typically when we do have anxiety, our strategy is to shut the anxiety down by making the event that we're anxious about happen as quickly as possible, right? So that is just something to think about, is whenever you feel like you can access the most calm, when you're least distracted, maybe you want to sort of think strategically about like whatever else is happening in your world, whether it's with the kids or your current job or just, the daily noise of our lives. Find the place that brings really the ability to access the most quiet so that we can show up the most present. The other thing I will say is make sure that you know where you're going, how to get there, where to check in, who to ask for. Like those logistics are important, because having them squared away, again, it's just one way for us to sort of lower the amount of uncertainty associated with the whole experience, and that allows us to access more confidence
and peace of mind as well, because that's sorted, so I can be present for the interview instead of just like going through my paperwork and just everything falls on the floor, and it will obviously build even more anxiety.
That's right. And you actually served up my next point so beautifully with that, because the next point that I wanted to make is quiet your mind, right? The day of, you want to be able to really quiet your mind. And so the way that I like to think about this is, remember in high school when we had to take some sort of like a standardized test? So when you knew that you had to take a standardized test, that day was not the day to study, right?
No.
So that morning was not the day to crack out the textbooks and, jam in, organic chemistry or calculus or, isosceles triangles. We weren't doing it that morning. And I liken that to the interview process. That day is not the time to do your prep. That is the time to take a walk with a friend. That is the day to get in a workout. That is the day to do whatever it is that allows you to release anything that you might be holding that doesn't serve you in terms of showing up confidently. For me, I will turn on 80s music and I will rock it out, and I'm really good at it. So I will completely get into my groove and just, my body is pulled in by the music, and it's just such a cathartic release. And it allows me then to come back to my center, not with yoga, but with dance, right? With energetic dance. And that's just personally how I find my clarity, how I find my calm. And so it looks different for everyone. What does it look like for you?
Well, I'm laughing because I'm like you. Sometimes I'm just I like the 80s, but I like salsa. So for me, salsa is just like my feet just like stop moving on their own. So could go for a walk as well. But I think music is really the answer as well. So it keeps my mind. I'm singing along, and peace of mind, and just like giving myself as well some energy.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that you salsa dance. That's a cool little fact that I learned about you today. So it really is about doing whatever it is that brings you to that state of calm. And it is very, very powerfully associated with your ability to go in and do all of the other things that we talked about, right? Show up prepared, show up excited, show up in a state of mind that really allows you to access the opportunity as, I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn about not only the opportunity, but also about myself, which I then, can learn or I can bring forward to any other interviews that I have or any other life experiences that I have. And so my very last tip is one of remembering that the person interviewing you is also human, right?
Mm.
And they're showing up to this process with their own anxieties. One of their anxieties could be that the job is open and they need to get it filled because the team is stressed out, right? Or it could just be that they might be new at the job, right? That might be their third day on the job, and here they are having to interview you. We really don't know exactly what's happening with that person, but we can assume that they are trying to fill the role and they're cheering you on. They want you to be the right person. They want the interview to go well. And so I think it's just important to recognize that, as humans, we do tend to have this desire to see other humans succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's such a powerful thing, like to go in and recognize, like, okay, if Isabel's my interviewer, Isabel wants me to do well. She believes that there's an opportunity here and that I may or may not be the right person, but her attitude going into the interview process is, I'm here to meet Tiffany Green, and Tiffany might hit it out of the park. And so I think that just remembering that we are all vulnerable, right? And we are also
Okay.
all brave. And that also applies not only to the candidate, but to the person sitting on the other side of the table. So, I just want to say thank you for the chance to really dive in and talk about this. I've really enjoyed this subject because I have come to find interviewing fun. Like, if you ask me, would you rather do small talk at like a party with cocktails, or would you rather interview? I'd rather interview. I know, I know that's weird.
No, that's not weird. It's just passion. Look at that. That's passion because you're passionate about it. And I can tell, I mean, you're smiling and your body language. So, yeah, sometimes that's what makes our heart sing.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And it goes back to the opportunity to be with somebody, right? To be with somebody in an authentic way, and to just hold space for learning. And that's always been my motivation, is learning about other people, learning about the world, learning about myself. And so for anyone who is in the situation of sort of mentally preparing for an interview process, I believe in you. You can do it. And the more that you can tap into this idea that there is a chance to learn, the more you'll be able to access your calm and your confidence. These are the type of things that you can work through with an interview coach. I do interview prep with my clients. Would be very happy to help. And it doesn't have to be me. It can be anybody that you feel safe with, in terms of like working through your interview answers. So as we go back to one of the points I made earlier about really cataloging your skills and your experiences and then breaking them down into those different parts we talked about, that's something you can do with someone in your family, a friend. But it should be someone who can give you feedback, right? So the one thing that I will say in closing there is, try to choose examples that really serve you and really demonstrate, where you've been able to have success. Because the whole idea of behavioral interviewing is that your past performance is an indicator of your opportunity to be successful in the future. So do make sure that you're choosing powerful examples. So thank you so much, Isabelle. It was lovely talking to you.
Yes, thank you ever so much, Tiffany. And I totally agree. But I feel like talking to a coach is different because you're going to be guided talking to a coach. And as well, because it's somebody you might not know or not know very well, that there is that part of being intimidated when you are in an interview, a job interview. So I suppose if you are doing it with somebody you're not familiar with, you are in that condition. I would really recommend my audience to get in touch with you, to practice with you, to get the tips on how to get rid of the anxiety, to overcome this anxiety, because that will, I'm sure, Tiffany will help you to get rid of this anxiety, to get more confident and be prepared for the interview and get the job you want. So Tiffany, thank you ever so much for all those tips. So I've got get some info from the company, the job description, centering, preparing the potential responses ahead of time, the passion, obviously, scheduling, when is the best time for you to tap into that passion. For me, it's in the morning. Then the logistic, make sure you know where you're going, what time, don't forget, how long it's going to take you to go there, and allow a little bit more if there is traffic. Quiet your mind and look at the other people as, the interviewers as human. Thank you ever so much.
You did a great job summarizing my half hour.
I wrote them down. Okay. I'm not cheating. I wrote them down. So Tiffany, thank you ever so much. So please contact Tiffany to practice your interviews. And thank you again, Tiffany. Come back anytime. You're welcome to come back on Isabelle's talk show. And my next guest next week will be Bilitis Talagrande. And she's going to talk about how to identify your high potential, hypersensitivity, or multipotentiality. So don't forget next week. And obviously, if you've missed the previous talk shows, don't worry. Click on YouTube, look for Phoenix Coaching and Training, and you will see there are a few talk shows. And click on the bell as well, so you get the notification and you won't miss any. So thank you ever so much, and see you next week with Bilitis. Thank you again, Tiffany, and see you soon.